Right now, I'm being labeled as the one who abandoned her family, as selfish. My name is Alexandra Owen. I'm 28 years old and a financial analyst at a major investment firm. I used to tell myself that if I just worked hard and kept my head down, one day I'd be acknowledged. My older brother, Jeffrey, 4 years my senior, dropped out of art school and has since drifted between barista gigs and delivery jobs. Still, he believes he's someone with talent. Why? Because our mother raised him to believe he was the most gifted child in the family. Our late father, on the other hand, was a gentle, brilliant man. He died suddenly when I was 16. Not long after, I started working part-time. Not for shopping trips or coffee dates like the other girls my age, but because I knew after my father's passing there was no one left to take care of me. While other kids were being dropped off at home by their caring parents, I rode my bike through dark streets to my part-time job, worked late into the night, and cycled back alone, exhausted. My first paycheck went straight toward a used laptop. It was my lifeline to continue my studies. No one ever asked if I was eating enough or sleeping. But when Jeffrey, the dropout, needed a new computer, our mother didn't hesitate. "This is essential for him to resume his artistic journey," she declared, purchasing a brand new MacBook Pro on her credit card. That twisted logic became my daily reality. My achievements were taken for granted. Jeffrey's failures were celebrated as creative exploration. Though he's 4 years older, I became the backbone of the family the moment our father passed. Jeffrey always had a convenient excuse and everyone accepted it. He couldn't hold down a job, quitting each one shortly after starting. Whenever he said, "The manager is stifling my creativity," our mother instantly took his side. "People like you just don't understand his brilliance." But how was I treated? When I earned a full-ride scholarship to a state university, my mother's reaction cut like a knife. "Couldn't you have picked a closer school? Travel expenses are a burden and we need money for Jeffrey's art supplies." When I got hired at one of the top investment firms, she barely looked up. "That job sounds intense. Just make sure you're available if Jeffrey needs anything, okay?" I can't recall ever hearing the words, "We're proud of you." I foolishly believed that if I worked harder, achieved more, maybe, just maybe, they would finally see my worth. But that hope was in vain. Somewhere along the way, I stopped being a daughter and became an ATM. When the house needed repainting, "Alexandra, can you help with the cost?" When Jeffrey wanted to take an online art course, "Alexandra, can you cover it until next month?" At first, I believed it was just a temporary rough patch. I agreed to help with just this one bill, but that quickly turned into covering everything from the electric bill to home repairs to our mother's gas money. I sent money every month. Not once did I hear a thank you, only ever-growing demands. "This month's tight. Can you send a bit extra?" I swallowed my frustration and convinced myself I was honoring my father's memory by keeping the family together. But each time I came home drained from work only to see Jeffrey lounging on the sofa, feet up, game controller in hand, my blood boiled. My mother would serve him his favorite meal, reminiscing about that beautiful drawing Jeffrey made in 5th grade, while completely ignoring my presence. I am not a heartless monster. There was a time I cared deeply about even the smallest of family troubles. But I refuse to live in a world where my exhaustion goes unseen while Jeffrey's failures are treated like Olympic victories. It all started with one phone call from my mother. I was away on a week-long business trip. Late at night, I was catching up on work in my hotel room when my phone lit up with her name. With a sinking feeling in my chest, I answered the call. "Alexandra, it's bad," she said, her voice trembling. "The bank just sent us a final notice. We haven't paid the mortgage in months. The house might be foreclosed." "What?" I shot to my feet. "What about the money I've been sending every month? Where did it go?" There was a pause. Then she choked out. "We were short on living expenses and Jeffrey's new painting classes. You didn't pay the mortgage on Dad's house?" I asked in disbelief. Please, Alexandra? My stomach twisted. That house, Dad's house, was where I grew up. I could still feel his laughter echoing in the hallways. How much? I asked hollowly, already knowing I was about to give everything I had. $40,000. If we don't come up with it in a week, we'll lose the house. The house your father loved. Her voice already held relief, as if she knew I wouldn't say no. Losing my father's house felt like losing him all over again. My chest tightened with the thought. When I opened my savings account, there it was, the money I had carefully set aside for years. It was meant to be for my own apartment. My way out. My way to finally leave my mother and brother behind. Now I had a choice: save my father's home or chase my dream. I understand, I said, exhaling deeply. I'll transfer the $40,000. But this time, I need you to promise it has to go toward the mortgage. Of course, honey. My mother's voice instantly brightened. You really are such a wonderful daughter. After hanging up, I stared out at the city lights beyond my hotel window. I opened the bank app and processed the transfer, feeling my dream of owning my own place drift further away. But I told myself if I could save Dad's house, it would be worth it. The next day, I received the confirmation email, but nothing from my mother. In the past 10 years, I had been nothing more than a bottomless ATM to them. What crushed me wasn't the money itself. It was the way my mother and brother treated me. I don't think I've ever heard either of them say, "Thank you." Jeffrey still hadn't contributed a single cent. When I gently suggested he start looking for a job, my mother snapped at me. He's discovering his artistic voice. Don't pressure him. Pressure? While I skipped meals and doctor's appointments, overworked and drained, just to cover his expenses? That imbalance burned inside me like acid. I began documenting every dollar I sent, a financial record of my exploitation. Not because I expected them to pay me back. I had long stopped believing in that fantasy, but every time I considered cutting them off, a new desperate message would arrive. Mom needs help with her medical bills. Or Jeffrey needs more for his art supplies. And I would cave again. Send more money, watch my dreams slip even further away. I believed that bearing everyone else's burdens until my knees buckled was strength. That maybe, just maybe, tomorrow they'd appreciate me. But the moment that illusion shattered, I knew something had to change, and it had to start with me. A few days after wiring the $40,000, I returned from my week-long business trip. My body ached. Every muscle begged for rest. Still, I stopped at the store and filled a cart with my mother's favorite groceries. Just like always. I pushed open the front door, arms full of grocery bags. Fresh salmon, organic produce, ready-made meals. Maybe this time, I foolishly hoped, they'd notice the sacrifice. When I pulled into the driveway, there was a luxury car I didn't recognize. I stepped inside and found my mother and Jeffrey laughing with a man I'd never seen before. "Oh, Alexandra," my mother said coolly when she noticed me. "This is Ryan, Jeffrey's new art dealer." He was just heading out. "Art dealer?" I asked, confused. "Someone finally sees my talent," Jeffrey said, beaming. "Ryan's organizing a solo exhibition for me at a gallery. We just need some upfront funding." And right then, a terrible suspicion crept in. After Ryan left and my mother closed the door, she turned to me, her expression transformed into something cold and unfamiliar. "Alexandra, we need to talk," she said, her voice slicing through the air before I could even put the bags down. The $40,000 wasn't enough for the mortgage. We need more. My fingers went numb. Not enough? I just sent the transfer. Her eyes narrowed, and she launched into a speech I could tell she'd rehearsed. "You make good money at that fancy firm. You're single, without any responsibilities. Meanwhile, we're struggling just to keep the house. How can you be so selfish? The grocery bags in my arms felt like concrete blocks. I kept my voice steady, barely. For the past 10 years, I've covered the bills, utilities, medication, home repairs. I've kept this household running. And it's still not enough? Jeffrey, lounging in Dad's old recliner with a game controller in hand, hit pause and chimed in. We're family, right? Isn't sharing what families do? I stared at my 32-year-old brother, fury surging through my veins. He had never paid a single bill in his life. How dare he lecture me about sharing? Something inside me cracked. Sharing? Sharing requires giving and receiving, Jeffrey. I've done nothing but give. What have either of you ever given me? I said. My voice was like the blade of a kitchen knife. You only know how to take. Alexandra. My mother's voice cut through the air like a whip. How dare you speak to your brother like that? Get out. Don't ever come back. What? I was stunned. She stormed toward my room and threw open the door. It was empty. I got rid of your things. You don't need them anymore, do you? I stood frozen. Everything was gone. My father's photos, the keepsakes from my childhood, the fountain pen my father gave me, the picture of us together, my college diploma gone. What about Dad's things? I asked, my voice trembling. I sold them to a second-hand shop, she said flatly. We used the money to fund Jeffrey's exhibit. What? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She had traded every memory of our father for the uncertain future of a son who'd never lifted a finger. How much does Jeffrey's exhibit cost? Can Ryan even be trusted? The words escaped before I could stop them. My mother looked at me with eyes as cold as ice. Leave, and don't ever come back, she said coldly. At that moment, something inside me gave out. I whispered, it's over. I turned toward the door, each step feeling strangely weightless. No one followed me. No one called my name. Only Jeffrey's familiar sneer trailed after me. The usual remarks so dramatic, just craving attention. I walked out of my father's house with nothing but a single suitcase, but my back was straight. As the rain began to fall, I walked away from my father's house. It soaked through my clothes and plastered my hair to my face, but with every step down that path, I felt a strange, incredible lightness spread through my chest. For years, I had convinced myself that what I was carrying was a duty to family. But it wasn't. It was a set of iron chains. And now, finally, gloriously, they had fallen away. When I got into the car, I looked over to the passenger seat and found my father's old photo, the one keepsake I had always carried in my bag. I whispered, Dad, I hope this is what you would have wanted. In the reflection of the rain-streaked window, I saw a new kind of resolve in my own eyes. I drove to a quiet gas station and parked in the far corner. My hands trembling, I opened the contacts list on my phone. My mother's name. Jeffrey's name. With a surprising steadiness, I pressed block on them both. I stayed at a hotel for a while, then moved into a modest apartment not far from work. The relief was like learning to breathe again after a decade underwater. I woke up to my own schedule, brewed coffee the way I liked it, and opened the curtains and let the light pour in. There was no blaring TV, no constant complaints, no 3 a.m. video game noise. Evenings and weekends were mine again. I read the books I'd been putting off for years, took online courses, and my phone no longer buzzed with new emergencies. I cut every financial tie. No more transfers, no more grocery runs, no more managing their medical appointments. My bank account finally stabilized. And then it began to grow. For the first time since my father's funeral, I started saving money. Simple thing. But something impossible while supporting 3 adults. My peaceful new life lasted for 6 months. One evening after work, I found a letter waiting for me, an unfamiliar envelope from a law office I didn't recognize. It simply read, to Mizu Owen. Inside, There was a letter and a yellowed envelope. The letter began, "My name is Michael Norman, son of the late Michael Norman, who was a close friend and attorney of your father, Douglas Owen. My father passed shortly after yours. During a recent office relocation, I discovered documents your father had entrusted to him. Though 10 years have passed since his death, these were intended to be delivered to you." With trembling hands, I opened the yellowed envelope and found a letter addressed to me in my father's handwriting, along with a stack of notarized documents. "To my beloved daughter Alexandra," it began. As I read the words, I could hear my father's warm voice in my mind. "If you are reading this, I am no longer in this world. I've arranged for my attorney, Michael Norman, to pass these documents to you. There is something I never told you while I was alive. Upon my death, the house is to be legally transferred into your name. All necessary documents are enclosed." The letter continued. "I ask, if it is within your heart, to allow your mother and Jeffrey to stay in the house after I'm gone, but only if they treat you with respect and gratitude. This is not an obligation, only a kindness." Tears blurred my vision as I read through the attached paperwork. Sure enough, it confirmed that my father had left the house to me. The truth was finally out, and with it, a new surge of fury and clarity. I contacted the bank immediately and requested the mortgage payment records. When the report arrived a few days later, I was stunned. The $40,000 I had sent hadn't been applied to the mortgage at all. Going through the detailed statements, I found that the money had been used to pay off Jeffrey's credit card charges from high-end furniture stores, resort bookings, and something labeled art career development expenses. I sat at my computer, shaking with fury and betrayal, and I made my decision. The next day, after consulting with my lawyer, I sent a formal notice of eviction. Just hours later, my phone rang. It was my mother, seething with rage. "Alexandra, why did we receive an eviction notice at the house?" Her voice was shaking. "The bank says they're foreclosing." I took a deep breath to steady myself. "The house is legally in my name," I said calmly. "It's been that way since Dad died, and you knew that." I heard her gasp on the other end. "And the $40,000 I sent?" "It was never used for the mortgage," I continued. I pulled the bank statements. "I have all the proof. Jeffrey's career was depending on it." She protested. "And you sold off Dad's belongings to pay for that?" My voice turned cold. After a long silence, she spoke in a small voice. "What are you going to do?" "You have 1 week to pack up and move out," I said quietly. "Dad gave me a choice, and I've made mine." She shouted, "You'll regret abandoning your father's memory." This house meant everything to him. I hung up without a word. The messages came flooding in afterward. "We have nowhere else to go. Your father would be ashamed of you." And from Jeffrey, "You're tearing this family apart over your selfish pride. Selling out your own blood for money? Disgusting." I didn't respond to any of it. They didn't understand. This was never about the money. It was about dignity. The day before the eviction deadline, I was in the office, doing a final review of the quarterly report. As I focused on the screen, the front desk line rang. "Ms. Owen, there are 2 people here to see you." A woman and a man. "They say they're your mother and brother?" There was a confusion in the receptionist's voice. For a moment, the blood drained from my face. "Thank you. I'll be right there," I replied. When I reached the lobby, my mother and Jeffrey were waiting. She had tears in her eyes. He stood with his arms crossed, radiating anger. I felt the weight of my co-workers' glances through the glass wall as I led them into a conference room. I shut the door behind us. "What are you doing here?" My voice was low, measured. "You came to my workplace? Without notice? What else were we supposed to do?" My mother's voice trembled. "You wouldn't answer our calls or messages. How do you expect us to just act normal after the way you treated us? Jeffrey cut in. Eviction? Are you serious? I caught the eyes peeking in from the hallway. Lower your voice. This is my workplace. We're your family. My mother's voice cracked. And you're throwing us out into the street. For 10 years, I supported you, I said, keeping my tone as even as I could. Not once did either of you thank me. Even after I sent you $40,000, it didn't go to the mortgage. It went to your luxuries. It was an emergency, she insisted. A cruise is not an emergency, I replied, pulling out the printed bank statements. A new television? Art supplies for Jeffrey? Jeffrey stepped forward, face flushed with anger. You betrayed this family. Dad would be ashamed of you. My voice turned to ice. Dad left the house to me, and he said you could stay only as long as you respected me. Instead, you exploited me. And when you were done, you threw me out. My mother covered her face with her hands. Where are we supposed to go? She sobbed. Please, Alexandra. That's your problem now, I said, rising to my feet. I've sacrificed my life for you for a decade. No more. This isn't over, Jeffrey muttered, his voice low and threatening. We grew up in that house. I have rights. You have no legal rights, I replied, hand on the door. Now leave, right now. Or I'll call security. My mother tried one last time, her voice brittle with desperation. If your father knew. He did know, I said, turning back. That's why he left the house to me. He knew I'd need to protect myself. I walked them out of the building. On my way back, I ducked into the restroom. The face in the mirror was pale, but in my eyes I saw something I hadn't seen in years, resolve. The moment of release had finally come. It's been 1 year since that day. I sold my father's house, bought the condo I'd always dreamed of, and earned a long overdue promotion at work. I no longer drain my income for someone else's benefit. I save, I invest for me. One afternoon, the company's legal department contacted me. The $40,000 case had concluded, and the court fully upheld my claim. My mother and Jeffrey were ordered to repay the full amount, though, due to their lack of funds. They were placed on a monthly installment plan. They're already behind on payments, the legal advisor told me. We can file for garnishment if you wish. Proceed, I said without hesitation. Appealing to sympathy is their only strategy. Last week I saw Jeffrey in the parking lot of a grocery store. The arrogance he once carried was gone. He walked with slumped shoulders. When he saw me, his face tightened for a moment, but he quickly looked away. A friend later told me he'd just lost his 5th job, still insisting that no one understands his artistic vision, though in reality he couldn't even get hired for anything remotely related to art. He couldn't show up on time, follow instructions, or hold a job longer than a few weeks. I have artistic talent, why doesn't anyone see it? Jeffrey was overheard complaining at a local cafe. How am I supposed to create anything in a tiny apartment where I can't even stretch out a canvas? That art dealer, Ryan? He vanished the moment Jeffrey failed to pay the upfront fee. No one ever came forward to buy Jeffrey's work. Meanwhile, my mother now juggles 2 part-time jobs and still struggles to pay rent on their small apartment. Last month, she called me. Her voice was pleading. Alexandra, please, can we reduce the monthly payments? We're really struggling. Where was that concern when I was struggling for 10 years? I asked calmly. But I'm your mother, she cried. And you kicked me out of our home. Don't you remember? After I hung up, I felt no guilt. They were simply living the consequences of their choices. Her final message came last week. Your father would be heartbroken if he saw this. Followed by, a collector might be interested in Jeffrey's work. We just need some funding to prepare for a new exhibition. I replied briefly. Dad wanted me to protect myself. Your lack of respect was your choice." Then I blocked her and took a deep breath. 10 years of sacrifice, forgotten in a heartbeat, just to be dragged back into another artistic opportunity. The spring sun outside my window spoke of a new beginning. I looked at my father's photo on the shelf and smiled. "It's okay, Dad. I'm finally living my life now. I no longer live for them." I thought about reconciliation once, but that hope vanished because they haven't changed. They only reach out when their pockets are empty, not when their hearts are full of remorse. I chose to continue walking my path with unwavering resolve. Now, free from the chains of the past, I move forward with confidence.